When you are reminded of Baccano, chances are the first characters that come to your mind are Isaac and Miria. You know, that couple who seem to appear in almost every time period of the story, somehow finding themselves involved in many incidents that were seemingly unrelated to each other. In this world of violence, bloodshed, loss, torture, and many other atrocities, this pair stands out. They're prone to, if accidentally, bringing light into hopeless situations. On the Luxury Express, the Flying Pussyfoot, their naive enthusiasm and bravery gave Jacuzzi Splot the motivation and confidence he needed to liberate the train and its passengers from a terrorist group. In New York, their infectious innocence and kindness warmed the heart of the artificial life form, Ennis, granting her the courage to stand up to her heartless creator, and bringing out the best parts of herself so she could have a life to look forward to. One worth living, and not alone, but with good people she could share that life with. Isaac and Miria have a certain distinct presence that is unlike anything else I've seen in fiction.
Don't move!
Right?
Oh yeah, right.
They're like two halves of one whole. It would be hard to imagine either of these two without the other. Their clueless natures and childlike innocence can be frustrating if you think too hard about the things they're saying, and how they claim so many objectively false things with such confidence, but it can be difficult to stay angry with them. That's how Firo Procenezo feels about them anyway. These two are more than open to being friends with pretty much anyone, even dangerous criminals such as Firo and the rest of the Martillo family. Their opinions on others can flip on a dime based on what they experience with them. Initially, they wanted to steal from the Martillos for profit, but after fumbling into a party night with the family, they made a home for themselves there. Compared to other characters from this series, who are irredeemably evil, Isaac and Miria mean no harm whatsoever. They are boundlessly curious, friendly, helpful, and positive. They almost feel like they're from another world compared to the rest of the cast, and yet they complement the other characters and the story itself perfectly. In fact, Baccano could not function as a complete story without them. Well, what if I told you there were other characters in this series who held a similar narrative importance, not just in terms of being important to the plot, but characters who also seem like they're from another world, and most importantly, those who promote change in those around them simply by being themselves. If you're wondering where you might find these characters, given that Baccano only has 16 episodes in the anime, look no further than the expanded universe within the light novel series the anime is based on. Only about 3 volumes worth of content are covered in the animation, including some, but not the entirety of, plots from other books. One of such characters is Elmer C. Albatross. I'll leave much of his characterization up for you to discover when you read, but this is a man who is entirely devoted to seeing other people smile. As a matter of fact, he will do anything, absolutely anything, to make that happen. There truly is no limit to the things he is willing to do, no matter how good or how evil, if it means seeing someone smile at least once, even if it's from a total stranger. Because of this, he is viewed as an unmistakably evil man by some. He is sometimes given the nickname the Smile Junkie, or Mr. Happy Ending, as he is constantly smiling himself, seldomly showing anything other than a positive attitude, no matter the situation. Elmer is like an airborne disease. He is always on the move, never staying in the same place for too long, infecting people with his stupidly simple philosophy. Sometimes those people go through a metamorphosis because of his influence, changing in ways he might not have particularly had in mind, but as long as they're smiling, that's really all he cares about. His influence promotes change in many characters in this series. You see a small amount of him in the anime, and get a slither of his personality, but believe me when I say, you ain't seen nothing yet. Another character I would deem to be of a similar caliber is the homunculus Christopher Shaldred. Similarly to Ennis, he is an artificial life form born of alchemy. He and his fellow homunculi were created by the immortal terrorist Huey Lafarre, who sees and treats them as nothing more than guinea pigs. Chris has lived a life of pain and agony, being dissected and torn apart countless times, and only finds any degree of connection among the other homunculi. Despite this, however, he is always grinning mischievously and cracking jokes, usually at the expense of others. He doesn't express his grief, if he even has such feelings, in any way. His interactions with most can be seen as malicious, not just when he psychoanalyzes them and loves to watch them break under pressure, but especially when he goes on gleeful killing sprees during a mission. Even then, he almost never expresses any scorn or hatred. It's more like he gets a kick out of the things he does to people. And something that might come as a surprise from someone like this, he has a deep reverence towards nature. He sees himself as an unnatural being, far from nature herself, and thus feels a certain amount of respect for humans and anything else born of nature. He has a rather complicated relationship with humankind as a whole. For others, he is responsible for changing their lives in drastic ways, some good and some bad. Elmer and Chris, despite what awful things they are capable of committing, boast their own brands of innocence that, while certainly not as reassuring as Isaac and Miria's, place them in similar, yet different enough roles in the narrative for Baccano. And there is another character who fits this description, at least in my opinion. Maria Barcelito, an assassin who dual-wields Japanese katana despite being born in Mexico. She too boasts a childlike naivety and innocence. But that is not to say she isn't dangerous. She is an accomplished assassin, recognized by other top performers in her field. And yet, you wouldn't guess it based on an initial encounter with her. Unless you were one of her targets, you would have no idea as to what she did for a living. She's rather outgoing, welcoming, and brightly expressive. Her eyes bear nothing but the sort of innocence you would see in a young child, and not a hint of malice can be seen in them. She has a distinct quirk, at least compared to others you will see her hanging around. She addresses people as amigo or amiga, in quite a familiar and friendly tone. Well, most of the time it's friendly. Maria has a wonderful, unforgettable arc of her own in the light novels, and I won't be getting deep into it here. Herself and those she drags along with her on her journey change in ways that they never would have expected. The last character, or characters, I'll be mentioning here will be the bandit trio, the Vanishing Bunny. That's what their bespectacled member, Lana, wishes for them to be called anyway. The aforementioned Lana, despite her smart appearance, is rather clueless and impulsive. She is constantly getting into arguments with another member of their trio, Pamela. She can be easily manipulated for a short time if you just tell her she's doing a good job and give her positive reinforcement, even if it's baseless and she's done nothing right in the first place. She spent her days as a petty luggage thief, narrowly, luckily avoiding being caught, until finally, when a group of dangerous men had caught her, and would have killed her if not for Pamela stepping in by chance that day, marking that moment as a chance meeting, perhaps one woven into the fabric of fate itself, as their meeting would spiral into many other chance encounters in the future. The most quote-unquote normal one of this group, Pamela, almost doesn't fit the topic of this video on her own, but combined with the other bandits, the trio have a certain gravitational pull around themselves, similar but still quite distinct to that of Isaac and Miria. Pamela keeps the other two straight, at least she tries to. If not for her, the others would be lost and likely completely penniless. She is consistently brought to the breaking point with Lana, whose harebrained ideas and inability to see the whole picture sends Pamela into a state of cosmic frustration. I originally wrote comic frustration, but for some reason cosmic sounded hilarious to me. Anyway, Pamela possesses the smarts that an outsider might expect Lana to have. She began her criminal activities as someone who stole from the casinos she gambled in. Because of this, or perhaps it was always her nature, she possesses sharp instincts and has a good eye for opportunities, especially when it came to thievery. Speaking of good eyes, their third and latest member, Sonia, was a younger girl who seemed to have been indoctrinated into loving, well, more like worshipping guns. That's right, guns. Her parents taught her from a young age that guns were everything in the world, above all other things. She bought into it, and has become just as obsessed as they were. Sonia is yet another character with a brimming innocence in her eyes. She speaks rather casually, and treats everyone equally, seemingly possessing no hatred for anyone whatsoever. As long as guns exist, and she can fire them, that's all she needs. And she's good at it too. She can effortlessly fire and carry around weapons as big as she is tall. There is another aspect to her characterization that is important to fully understanding her, but well, you know, just go read the goddamn light novels already. That being said, everyone I mentioned in this video will likely be getting their own dedicated videos in the future. Baccano is a series about people impacting others with their own actions, and sometimes with just their passive nature alone. The world is a place where the impossible can happen, simply from unlikely people meeting in unlikely places by happenstance. The characters I mentioned today all do this in their own ways, and there are many more who I haven't mentioned in this video. But I plan to make more Baccano content in the future, and there is certainly much more to talk about. I haven't even scratched the surface. So, if you want to see more, please subscribe and leave a comment, because more than views, likes, subs, or anything else, comments are the thing I get the most fulfillment from when I post my works. I seriously urge you to read the light novels if you haven't already. I don't think, based on the performance of the first season, that there will be any animated continuation of this story anytime soon, if ever. Even if you don't like reading and have a hard time focusing, you might be surprised when you read Baccano. I know when I first got into the series, I struggled to focus and hadn't committed myself to reading a book in many years. But Baccano is such a vividly imaginative, fun, and thrilling world that I don't even need visuals to enjoy it. If anything, I say just listen to some jazz instrumentals to help you relax and get yourself immersed in the setting. Don't be intimidated by the fact that there are 22 volumes. I started a few months ago myself and still have 2 volumes left. Definitely don't rush it. Enjoy each book for what it is, as each one has its own distinct themes and wild stuff going on to dissect in their own right. But anyways, dinos, thank you very much for watching. And keep an eye out. You never know whose life you might change without even realizing it. Bye for now.